What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/ChoosingBeggars.
This story's called, "My Brother Wipes Out My Parents' Retirement with His Sense of Entitlement." If this story doesn't belong here, let me know. I consider him a choosing beggar, but I'm not 100% sure you'd all agree. This is long, so strap in. I promise it's worth it. So my older brother was always spoiled by my parents. Not because they wanted to treat him special, but because I was always the quiet one and never spoke up when I wanted something. This would almost always result in us getting or doing whatever my brother wanted. Unfortunately, this gave him a sense of entitlement a mile wide. When he was a teenager, he had some struggles with mental health. These were absolutely legitimate and made everyday life debilitating for him for years. My parents wanted the absolute best for him, so they paid for private psychiatrists and psychologists, the best they could find. I'm not American, so we have a public healthcare system with the option of private care if you can or wish to pay. My dad had a good job, and at this time in our lives, money was not a huge concern. This seemed to be helping, and at around the time when I was supposed to set off to go to university in a different city, my brother, with the support of his care team, decided to start his tertiary education at the same time in the same city as me. There was no university in my hometown, and several of the best universities in my country are all in one big city. This made the living arrangements for my parents much simpler, as they helped pay for our rents, we flatted together, and we paid for everything else. They agreed to support us through university, and then we'd be on our own. My brother had a small episode on the day that he was sent to start his classes, and didn't go. This resulted in him being removed from his program. It was a compulsory first day. He could try again at the start of the next semester halfway through the year. A major setback, but hardly limiting. The logical thing would be for him to move back home until he could start again. His student loan stopped once he was removed from the program, so he had no money to live away from home, and I should get a flatmate for the place I was staying. My brother didn't like this idea. I should note that my brother hated living at home. He thought our house was too small and our neighborhood was too poor looking. We were a middle-class family who lived in a nice house that my dad built. It just so happened to be in a low-income area because when he built it, he was not as financially secure as he was later in life. It was an awesome neighborhood with a good sense of community, and I loved it there, but again, my brother had a huge sense of entitlement and thought he deserved to live somewhere better. Next thing I know, the new psychologist he is seeing in our new city has written a letter to my parents saying that an opportunity to immerse himself in this new city will allow him to more easily transition to study. Oh, and he was not well enough to work either. He should focus on getting used to his new surroundings. My parents, wanting what is best for my brother, allow him to stay living with me and give him an allowance which is equal to what his loans would have given him. Great, so everybody is happy, right? Not my entitled brother. The allowance he was getting wasn't enough for him. You see, he wasn't a student, so he didn't feel like he had to live a student lifestyle. He wanted to eat steak and lamb for dinner. He wanted new clothes every few weeks, a new iPhone when it came out, a new MacBook because his was slow. Again, my parents decided to get him some new goodies every now and then to keep him happy. And they also upped his allowance again. After a few months, he was getting more than twice as much per week as a student loan would give. And because I was buying groceries most weeks, he had almost no ongoing expenses once utilities were paid. Second semester rolls around, and my brother hasn't even bothered enrolling. His psychologist, who he sees weekly by the way, again out of my parents' pocket, wrote another letter, and things dragged on again and again. Fast forward 3 years and I'm getting set to graduate, while my brother is still not working or studying while living in an apartment paid for by my parents. I get a decent job in my field at the university I studied at, and so I keep living in the apartment, except now I pay for half the rent as well as half the other expenses. By this point, my parents are just paying for my brother's half of the bills directly, while still giving him an allowance that was close to my salary. I have been getting increasingly increasingly annoyed by this as my parents don't want him living on his own due to his illness. But he is refusing to come home with the support of his psychologist. I suggest sending him for a second opinion, but he again refused, and my parents respect his wishes. So far, not much begging going on, right? This is where it really gets wild. After I had been working for about a year and a half, our landlord decides that he wants to sell our apartment. Okay, this happens. We start looking around for a new place. My brother goes completely off the entitlement deep end when we are apartment hunting. He refused to look at anything that wasn't well outside of our given budget. Anything inside of our budget is too small, or too old, or too dark, or too ugly. He wants a modern, new apartment in the heart of the city in one of the most expensive suburbs. His psychologist writes another letter outlining the importance of a comfortable environment for him. My parents cave, but I can't afford half of the new rent. They compromised with me, and I only have to pay the same rent as I was before, which is barely a third of the rent at the new place, mind you. I wanted to get my own place at this point. I'm mid-20s with a serious girlfriend who I intend to marry one day. I want to start my own life without my brother attached, but my parents beg me to stay for just 1 year. It's a beautiful apartment, and I can save while staying there, so heck, why not? I wasn't happy, but I could live with it. Unfortunately, my brother is now used to getting everything he wants or needs. He starts asking me to pay for more and more of the groceries. Idiot me, thinking that mom and dad had cut down on his allowance now that the rent is so expensive, agree to take up some of the slack. Big mistake. They were still giving him the same amount. He just wanted more. He starts asking me for more and more things, and then whines to mom when I don't give it to him. My parents cave over and over again and get him whatever he wants. New computer, new MacBook, new iPhone, heck, even a car. Up until this point, my parents could afford everything, especially with me helping out where I can. I was still saving for a house. I wasn't willing to throw away my future for my brother's present comfort. My dad had a good job and they were saving well for retirement. They were honest with me about their finances, as I would eventually be the one who got power of attorney when the time came. My mom is a pragmatic woman about that sort of thing, even if she has trouble saying no to my brother. But then, my dad stopped getting paid. He has an unusual job and works in a remote location away from home. And while he was stationed away, the company he was working for just vanished with the owner leaving the country. Now he can't leave his post until he is relieved. It was an important job and there were legal ramifications for leaving his post unattended, so he was stuck there with no pay coming in. This resulted in him essentially losing his job and going months without being able to look for new work. Really messed him up for a while. He was only a few years away from retirement, so he decided it was time to kick back and enjoy life. My brother lost his mind. He raged for days on end that dad betrayed him by not continuing to work. He would yell at mom over the phone, saying that they had better keep on supporting him because he deserves the lifestyle that he has earned. Whatever that means. I remember him saying that very vividly because I laughed my ass off, at which turned into a huge fight. Knowing that my parents couldn't afford that rent without my dad working, I decided to move into my own place and try and force a resolution. I end up finding a nice place of my own that my girlfriend and I move into. My brother, however, refuses to leave. He again gets a psychologist letter to try and convince my parents to let him stay. He even has his boyfriend offer to move in with him. He was a really nice guy, but is a struggling artist working on commission. Next thing I know, he is still living in the ridiculously expensive apartment with his boyfriend struggling to help cover when he is able. I move on with my life, fall mostly out of contact with my brother, and start my own adult life properly. I get married and settle down. 5 years go by, and when I'm visiting my parents one day, my mom breaks down. It turns out that my brother had spent the next several years after I moved out refusing to reduce his spending or get a job or move home or anything. He would constantly blackmail my parents, saying that they would make their son homeless if they didn't give him free money. He had been doing that for years without my knowledge, and my parents didn't know what to do. His very expensive medical team was condoning his behavior. My parents have burned through almost 2 decades worth of their retirement savings trying to support my out-of-control brother. I decide to visit this psychologist myself, only to find out she is one of those tell me what they want to hear so they keep giving me money, predatory type psychologists who was enabling my brother because he was a cash cow for her. Our entire family was furious. Turns out, my brother had been recovered since his first year living away from home. He was perfectly able to work or study, he just didn't want to, and so she wrote him those bogus letters to let him get away with it. He decided to milk my parents of their savings to fund his lifestyle because he had earned it. When confronted about it, he was entirely unapologetic. He's now cut off completely and works for a retailer complaining about my parents' lack of respect for him on Facebook every few days. I again want to emphasize, my brother had legitimate mental health issues. I do not want to take away from that. He just chose to willfully deceive everyone about the severity in order to demand that everyone else give him the life he feels he deserves. And no, his mental illness would have in no way contributed to that attitude. It was not that sort of illness. He's just an entitled schlong wad. Man, that brother sucks. Because he's got obviously very accepting and loving parents, and he just chose to take advantage of them, and that's horrible. Because I know for a fact there are lots of people whose parents did not give a crap about their mental illness, and it just really sucks that that guy would take advantage of that support. Really unfortunate. This story's called, Thanks for Fixing My Car. Can you drive me across the city? I was running around doing some last-minute errands when I stopped at a drugstore to grab a Christmas card. I parked next to a guy, Choosing Beggar, who was standing in front of his car with the hood up. When I got out of my car, Choosing Beggar asked me what it meant to give a boost. So I gave him the explain it like I'm 5 explanation. His car wouldn't start, and he clearly didn't know anything about cars and probably just got off the phone with someone who told him to find someone to give him a boost. I had a little time to kill, and it was Christmas Eve, so I helped him out. We've all had car trouble at some point. I know that feeling of helplessness, so I didn't mind. Got the jumper cables hooked up, and he went to crank the engine. Nothing. So it definitely wasn't the battery. I'm not a mechanic, but I've been working on them since I was old enough to walk. So I spent the next 45 minutes diagnosing his problem. It ended up being a wire that had come loose from its looming in behind the engine and was touching the dipstick tube. Over time, the vibrations wore through the sheathing of the wire and was causing a short, blowing the fuse to his starter. So I gave him a ride to the nearest parts store so he could buy some new fuses and some electrical tape. I told him I could temporarily fix it and that he'd need a more permanent repair eventually. Got it fixed up, fused, replaced, and the car started right up. He was very happy, gave me a hug, and asked for my phone number. I gave it to him. Fast forward about 5 days. I'm at the dog park when my phone rings. It was Choosing Beggar. He asked me if I live in area of city where I fixed his car. I say no, but I may be 15 minutes from there. He asked me if I was at home at the moment. I thought he wanted to come give me a Christmas gift or something as thanks for saving his butt on Christmas Eve, and the at least $300 the shop would have charged him. Not to mention the week or more he'd be without a car as it sits in the shop over the holidays. I told him I wasn't home. I was out with my dog and would be maybe half an hour. Then Choosing Beggar tells me that he missed his bus and that he needs to get to work, and if I could give him a ride. I was floored, like actually shocked. I didn't say anything. I couldn't say anything. Then he tells me that he needs to meet his boss on the other side of the city. It's like a 70-mile round trip. I'm still not saying anything. He's asking me to pick him up, spend a quarter tank of gas, and at least 90 minutes of my time to help a guy I met once, with zero mention of throwing me some gas money for my troubles or anything at all. I guess he sensed my hesitation because then he amended his request and said, "Even if you can get me to the train station, I can make my way down there." I was still flabbergasted, but me being the nice guy I am, and really shouldn't be, and the fact that I lived near the train station, I said, "Sure, I'll take you to the train station, but it's still gonna be at least 30 minutes. I need to walk back to my car and then get up to you." I could hear the disappointment in his voice, but he accepted and I told him I'd call him when I was close. I get on the road and I'm just shaking my head at the balls on this guy. But I figure it's not that far out of my way, and maybe he's desperate and couldn't get anyone else to help him. Still, a cab or an Uber would cost him $70 plus. The least he could do is offer me a little gas money. I'm pulling up to the place he said he was waiting, and I reach down to grab my phone. But just as I do, he calls me. He tells me he found someone else to give him a ride to work. Are you freaking kidding me? I say, all right, man. Hang up and block his number. Just when you think you can't get any more cynical and jaded with people, humanity says, hold my beer. Poor dude. Hey, I would definitely appreciate that much effort for me. But this just shows the importance of give and take in a relationship, any relationship at all. Because guess what? If you maintain a good relationship like that, where you guys do each other favors all the time because you're buddies and stuff, you'll run into a time when you have nothing to give, but you really need to take, and so your buddy can be like, hey man, it's all good. And that's friendship. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.